Hello, and welcome to the Badhumanist look at Blood Death Knight. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the Blood Death Knight on the BfA beta and give my overall thoughts and opinions. I'll be talking about the paths and the abilities, going into kind of the base toolkit, following that up with a look at the talents, looking at different kind of synergies, how they modify the gameplay, of course for tanking, looking at survivability and threat generation, and then moving to stats, overall stat synergy, what I think about how stat layout might become. Wrapping it all up, I'll be talking about my overall thoughts and hope for the future. Now, this being my first tank, I do want to mention that I'll primarily be looking at survivability. So again, to do that, I'll simply be just attacking these trading dummies here. Again, they keep hitting you harder and harder. Basically, the longer you can live, the better your survivability might be. Again, it's of course without any external healing. So again, that's very important thing to consider. The other thing I'll be considering is threat generation. Now, threat was recently announced to be nerfed. So again, we're going from about a 20x multiplier of DPS to threat for tanks down to about 4. So for example, if a DPS does 1000 DPS, they do 1000 threat. If a tank does 1000 DPS, previously they would do 20,000 threat. Now they'll only do 4,000 is the basic idea here. So while I don't think this is going to have a big effect on single target threat, I think it will have a big deal when it comes to AoE threat, specifically if a DPS is targeting a target that you are not primarily damaging, right? If you just have a little AoE threat on them and some target goes, DPS goes ham on it, it will probably pull. So again, keeping that in mind. So look at the passives here. So we have Veteran of the Third War. This is your tanking passive. Stamina is increased by 50%, armor is increased by 20%. On a Pale Horse, same for all the Death Knights, increases your mounted speed by 20%. Blood Shield still here. It basically causes a shield of 44.2% of the base amount heal of Death Strike. Also increases your tap power by X% scaling with Mastery. Crimson Scourge, auto attacks on targets infected by your Blood Plague have a chance to deal your next Death Decay to cost no runes, and your set is cooldown. So again, you basically get freeze Death Decays off of your auto attacks on Blood Plagued targets. Moving on to abilities, Vamp Blood, one of the main cooldowns here. It increases your max health by 30%, increases all healing and absorb received by 30% for 10 seconds. That's a talent. Rune Forging. Now, I will mention that I do believe the tanking Rune Forge will actually be useful here. So in the past, you would just run Fallen Crusader. This ended up being better for Blood than Stone Chain Gargoyle was. Well, they've changed this a little bit. It's now 5% increase in armor and all stats by 5%. With the current kind of stat situation that we're in right now, this might end up actually being better than something like Fallen Crusader. So again, I do believe Stone Skin Gargoyle will actually be what you want to be rocking on your weapon. Raise Ally, your Battle Res is still here. Path of Frost is still here. Mind Freeze, your Interrupt, still here. Mirror is your main Bone Shield builder. So again, it does damage, generates 3 Bone Shields. Bone Shields gives you a barrier, increasing your armor and your haste by 10%. Each melee attack against you consumes a charge, lasts 30 seconds, or until all charges are consumed. Again, so the idea here is to keep Bone Shield up at all times. Again, the idea is there are some talents that will make it so you want to keep more targets on your Bone Shield than we currently have. So again, keeping that in mind, of course. IBF still here. It's a 30% DR for 8 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown. Heart Strike. Again, this instantly strikes a target and one nearby enemy, so baseline hits 2 targets, causing physical damage, reducing enemies' movement speed by 20%. Again, this does generate 5 bonus runic power, as opposed to what a normal 1 rune ability would generate. It's very important. Gorfine's Grasp. So again, this is what it was in the past. Now it's normally a 2-minute cooldown. I have a talent bringing it down to 1.5. That's Caress. This would be your ranged Blood Plague applicator. So again, does shadow damage and applies Blood Plague. This advance is now your baseline movement speed. So again, it simply increases your movement speed by 30% for 8 seconds. Death Strike, 45 runic power. Again, deals a bunch of physical damage and heals you for 30% of the damage taken in the last 5 seconds. This is a snapshot ability. So again, the more damage you've taken in the last 5 seconds, the more healing this will do. The other thing that should be mentioned again is that it does a minimum 10% maximum health. So anything that buffs your maximum health will buff the baseline heal of Death Strike. Death Grip still here, 15-second cooldown. Death Gate still here. Death Decay. Dark Command is your taunt. Now, one important thing is it's been like this for a while, but taunt multiplies your threat generation. So taunt's going to be very important because it's not going to just be taunt a target, have it come to you. It's going to be taunt a target, do damage so you can get ahead. Again, with the less damage to threat multiplier that we were having in BfA, it's going to be very important that you're doing damage in that taunt window to really maximize your maximum amount of threat on a target to kind of help DPS not pull off you. Dancing Rune Weapon, still here, 2-minute cooldown. Again, this summons a Rune Weapon for 8 seconds that mirrors your melee attacks. It basically will apply everything multiple times, so again, you can get multiple Blood Plagues out on the target. You can get multiple stacks of Bone Shield in one hit. Very, very useful, again, as well as giving you 40% parry. Control of Dead, still here. This is the talent. Blood Boil is going to be your main Blood Plague applicator. Again, it's an AoE. It applies Blood Plague to all targets within 10 enemies. Does shadow damage. There are 2 charges. 6-second recharge reduced by haste. Asphyxiate is a 5-second stun. And then AMS, of course, is a magic absorption shield that also generates RP when it absorbs. Let's talk now about talents. In the 56 row, you're going to have Heartbreaker. So Heartstrike generates 2 additional runic power per target hit. This is great. It makes it 5 targets. Sorry, not 5 targets. It makes it generate more additional RP. And like I mentioned, with Death and Decay, if you're standing in Death and Decay, your Heartstrike will hit up to, again, 3 additional targets, up to 5. So again, that's what I meant by 5. So with Heartbreaker, you can get 2 additional RP for each extra target. Sorry. So for example, if you're hitting 5 targets, you will get again an extra 8 runic power from that. So again, that can be very useful to getting yourself more death strikes. Blood Drinker again is a pretty powerful drain from the target. It also, of course, will heal you and do damage. So again, it's very useful in that it's both DPS and HPS. Very good for single target threat. 30-second cooldown, cost 1 rune. Rune Strike is a new ability here. Well, not really new, but new from last expansion. So it does a bunch of physical damage, and its cooldown, which is a 1-minute recharge, is reduced for by a second for every rune you spend. Maximum 2 charges. This lines up really well with Rune Tap, because again, with Rune Tap's a very strong DR. It's basically as strong as IBF, but it costs a rune. So having Rune Strike available to kind of Rune Strike a target and then Rune Tap can be very, very valuable. Because again, it allows you to, on your own, generate a rune whenever you want, and then use it on Rune Tap. So these two, I think, definitely will go well together. Your 57 row is your AoE-ish row, so you have Rapid Decomposition, so your Blood Plague and Death and Decay deal damage 50% more often. I love this. It basically just speeds up the tick. It does not reduce the total duration, which is very, very nice. So basically you're going to get 50% more ticks. That's more healing, more damage, all the above. Hemostasis. Each enemy hit by Blood Boil increases the damage and healing done by your next Death Strike by 8%, second to 5 times. This is very much like the legendary effect that Death Knights have currently. Very strong for single targets. Again, can be useful obviously in AoE, but I think it's much more going to be of a main raiding talent. Consumption was your artifact ability. It's now a talent. Same 4-second cooldown, strikes all enemies in front of you with a hungering attack that deals physical damage and heals you for 100% of that damage. So if I talent into that, you'll be able to see here. Let me run over to the other side. So the nice thing about this is not only is it doing damage to AoE, it's doing healing. Now, single target, it's not very valuable. It no longer has that granting leech effect like it had off of your artifact in in Legion. So again, you see this, not only do you hit all the targets, but you would also heal from all the targets. And again, it's a 1-to-1 damage to healing ratio. So not going to be great for a single target, will be great for AoE. 58 row, you have Foul Bulwark. This again makes each charge of Bone Shield increase your maximum health by 1%. So again, this is one way where the more Bone Shield stacks you have, the more health you have. That of course does increase the base heal of Death Strike. It can also synergize well with Vamp Blood. Again, the more health you have, it then increases it by that much more. Ossuary, so again, it used to be you could take both these talents. Now you can't. They're on the same row. So when you have at least 5 Bone Shield charges, the cost of Death Strike is reduced by 5, so it goes from being 45 to 40. This again gives you a reason to keep above 5 stacks. Additionally, your maximum RP is increased by 10. Now this part I don't care for as much. Again, the base is 100. Increasing it by 10 makes it 110. The problem is that even with a 40 cost RP Death Strike, that's still only 2. If it was 120, that would make sense because you could stack up to 120 and then get 3 off, which would be great. So, I'm not quite sure about this talent. Again, I found it to be a bit clunky because of it, and the reduced cost wasn't as valuable as I was hoping it would be. Tombstone, consume up to 5 bone shield charges. For each charge consumed, you gain 6 RP and absorb damage equal to 6% of your maximum health for 8 seconds. This is strong, and can be very, very strong. So again, basically with 5 bone shield charges, this would be able to give you a 30% shield. Again, so a shield for up to 30% of your maximum health. Now again, that's maximum health. So for example, if you vamp blood, and that increases your maximum health, you then get more shield out of it. It should be noted that vamp blood also increases the absorb received. This is an absorb. So it also gets buffed by that as well. So not only will you get the 30% extra health, but it will do even more because of vamp blood if you use them together. 60 row is Will of the Necropolis. Damage taken below 30% health is reduced by 35%. This is an okay talent. Again, I think in actual like tanking situations where you have healers around, it won't be as valuable as something like Rune Tap, because this is only really helpful for those hits that would normally kill you basically. Because again, any damage that would taken below 35% health is reduced. So for example, you're at 40% health, you get hit for 10% of your hit points, or 10% of your remaining health. The first 5 will hit you without any reduction. The remaining 5 would be reduced by 35%. So again, only damage that is taken below 35% health is actually included in the damage reduction. Now, if you are by yourself, so again, like you sitting on a dummy like this, this is very powerful because you spend a good bit of time below 35% health, and so it's just a flat 35% DR. In actual situations where you have healers, hopefully, I'm hoping, keeping you above 35% health, its value gets a bit diminished. It's just there to kind of help keep you from getting one shot when you're low, which still has value. Anti-magic barrier, this just basically buffs your AMS, so again reduces the cooldown by 15 seconds and increases the duration and amount absorbed by 30%. So again, it basically makes the uptime on AMS very, very high, much higher than it is currently, and again, it can absorb more, which does mean you get more RP from it. Rune Tap, I think, is going to be the go-to talent here. Rune Tap was great, but it competed with Foul Bulwark last expansion. Now it doesn't, and it's strong. So again, like I said, it costs 1 rune, which is all damage by 30%. That's the same as an IVF, Icebound Fortitude. 25% recharge, 2 charges. Like I said, if you take Rune Strike, you basically have this almost on demand, right? You basically have to Rune Strike once beforehand, but you can Rune Strike and then Rune Tap, and that's a very strong synergy there. 75, you have Grip of Death. This basically just puts the slow on Death and Decay. Very valuable for Mythic Plus. Tightening Grasp, this is what reduces the cooldown of Gorfium's Grasp by 30 seconds. Wraith Walk, this is the other movement. Again, this was what you had previously, it's now a talent. We all know it from before. 90 row, Voracious, Death Strike grants you leads for 6 seconds afterwards. This is an odd talent, because in most environments, your Death Strike, you get yourself pretty much back to full. Right? It's only when you're taking a lot of damage and you're Death Striking and you're not filling yourself back up that the leech is going to be helpful. The problem is that we got to remember, you got healers. And so while leech is super strong and super valuable, when you have healers, especially in a raid situation, less so in Mythic Plus, but definitely in raid, where they're going to be keeping you up, you have 3-4 healers possibly in a Mythic group. So the fact that the leech is only after Death Strike just seems to me a bit odd. Because again, when you Death Strike, you just healed yourself. You just gave yourself a shield. And so getting that extra leech then just doesn't seem to be the most valuable. Again, I found that in general I did a lot of overhealing with this talent. Bloodworms. So in a similar vein, this does a lot of healing, but only does a lot of healing when you are low on health. So your auto attacks have a chance to summon a Bloodworm. They deal minor damage to your target for 15 seconds, and then burst, healing you for 50% of your missing health. If you drop below 50, your Bloodworms will immediately burst and heal you. So this is a lot of healing, especially if you're down low for a long time. Bloodworms are very good. They also do damage. So the fact that they do damage, even if they did equal healing to any of the other two talents, the fact that they do damage might be valuable. Also, it should be mentioned that the heal does help gain you threat, so there's that as well. Mark of Blood, 30 RP cost, 6-second cooldown. Place the Mark of Blood on an enemy for 15 seconds. The enemy's damaging auto attacks will also heal their victim for 2%. So the fact you have to kind of keep this up, you can keep it up 100% of the time. The fact that you choose to, the only value I see on this really is off tanking. In a case where you're not death striking because you're off tanking, you could be Mark of Blooding to also then help heal the other tank, right? I think that's the idea behind this, is that the RP spent is basically to help keep your off tank up. But if you're doing a lot of tank swap, which is what tanks tend to be doing, you can just be stacking up Blood Shield with Death Strike. So you could basically be stacking up a huge Blood Shield, and then when you start tanking, you have a huge shield on you so that you don't get one shot, because it's on tank swaps before the healers can really react that oftentimes tanks can drop low. So I just don't know the real value in this, honestly. 100 row Purgatory, it is what it is. Again, it keeps you from dying. It should be noted the effect may only occur once every 4 minutes, so it's every 4 minutes it's going to occur. Again, it's a very strong ability. Again, it puts an Absorb Shield on you. As long as the Absorb Shield is healed up, either by yourself with Death Strike or by a healer, you don't die. Very, very powerful for progression type rating. Red Thirst reduces the cooldown on Vamp Blood by a second per 10 RP. Again, same idea here. It basically helps reduce the cooldown on Vamp Blood. It should be noted that this basically makes it a 1 minute cooldown, so it lines up very nice with Tombstone. A little bit less, under 1 minute actually. Last one, Bone Storm. This is going to be amazing for the plus. Again, there's a bunch of damage in a World of Bones around the target, doing shadow damage and healing you for 3% of your maximum health. So again, I'll try to actually show this off a little bit here on the AoE damage again. So again, not only does it heal you for 3% of your maximum health each time it deals damage, anytime it does damage any number of targets, but again, it's also doing that extra threat. So you get a lot of threat AoE wise, which again is going to be where threat's going to matter the most. So this is a great kind of ability for that. Does good healing, does good damage. Let's see if I can't get this going. So let's build up the RP here quickly. So again, I'm just going to build up the RP as high as I can. Now, I would think that Osprey would have some benefit here, because again, you can then stack up a little bit higher here. Alright, and then let's do this. And you can see Bone Storm just going to town. Again, you can use up to 100 RP. So at 100 RP, it lasts then, of course, for 10 seconds. So again, also for being able to kind of get higher stacks, getting up yourself to 125 RP total, helps because it allows you to have more RP than afterwards to use. But again, you can go back up here and see that, again, it's a lot, right? Again, basically every second you're getting healed here. I was hitting 4 targets, so I was getting healed for something in the order of 5,600, and then doing similar amounts, doing damage. Again, it's strong. Again, this also scales with your health pool, so again, if you have more health, this will heal you for more. So yeah, very, very, very powerful ability there. So again, for Mythic Plus, I do think something like maybe Bone Storm with either Bloodworms or Voracious. Voracious is probably going to have a little bit more value in Mythic Plus. You'll be doing more damage with AoE, so that Leech is more valuable. You also tend to be a little bit lower because you only have 1 healer. So being able to take care of yourself is very valuable in Mythic Plus. Titan Grasp, Grip the Dead, either one of those two probably, depending on what you're looking for. Again, I do think that Rune Tap is going to be very valuable. Will wouldn't be too bad for Mythic Plus as well. For this, I really do think that one of these two would probably be better. Probably Foul Bulwark, just to be able to keep your health up. Again, Mythic Plus more about you keeping yourself alive. Consumption, again, it's going to be very valuable. Rapid Decomp could be good, but I do think Consumption is going to just be really good, again, for that self-healing. And then again, Rune Strike if you're taking Rune Tap, if not Heartbreaker, for sure. For something like this for Mythic Plus. For range situations, however, I do think that Rune Strike or Blood Drinker would be what you're going to go with. Hemostasis is for sure. Fall Bulwark or Tombstone probably for that row. Will or Rune Tap, again, I probably think that Rune Tap would be best in a raid situation. Will's better when you have to keep yourself alive yourself, not depend upon others. Rune Tap's great for just not taking the damage to help your healers out in a raiding situation. Again, whatever you want here. Maybe Wraith Walk, again, if it's a raid where you don't need to gore fiends or don't need to slow, Wraith could be very valuable for the extra movement. Here, I do think that Bloodworms are Voracious, but again, I do think Bloodworms single target is a little bit better healing than Voracious would be. And then, of course, probably Purgatory or Red Thirst. Purgatory is going to be great for cutting edge stuff because just not dying is so valuable. Red Thirst, if on farm content, would probably be better. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of show a little bit of the kind of tanking rotation here. I'm going to be tanking on the tanking dummy. Again, the goal here is just going to be to see how far, how much I can stay alive, or how long. Alright, so I'm going to Dancing Rune at the very beginning so I can get up my Bone Shield quickly. Get up to 10 stacks. I'm going to Vamp Blood and then get my shield, get my 10 stacks back. Now I'm just going to kind of build RP until I need to heal myself. Going to get my blood boils going to help that out. There we go. And then I'm going to basically just be saving my Death Strike for when I take those big Uber Strikes. So again, let's get that going. So again, there's a lot of skill in the ability to know when damage is coming. That will definitely help because you'll get more healing out of those Blood Strikes. Sorry, Death Strikes. Let me heal myself with Blood Drinker there. And again, anytime you can get a Death Strike off right after a big amount of damage is very nice. Again, I'm about to have my Vamp Blood Tombstone combo back up here. So Vamp Blood Tombstone. Heal myself with that Vamp Blood. And look at that, almost back up to full. Again, you don't really want a Morrowind unless you need the bone stacks, because again, Heartstrike is a far better RP generator, and Death Strike is expensive. So again, the better you can manage that, the better that would definitely be for sure. I'm gonna die here almost any second now. Let's get that off to maybe try to help a little bit. Alright, yeah, it didn't get off. Alright, so again, that's the idea. By no means was that perfect. But yeah, these numbers are very consistent. I was basically able to stay alive actually for over 2 minutes, pretty easily actually, again when I was doing things properly. I did end up finding about 1.3k DPS was around what I was seeing in general. So again, that was not too bad here. Again, if you do the multiplier, 1.3 times 4 is going to give you, over 5,000, which again is way above any kind of single target DPS that we were seeing at this level. On the healing side of things, again, you will get a threat from healing as well. Death Strike, of course, is your main healing ability here. As you can see, when I wasn't able to have a healer heal me up, Will did a lot of healing, Bloodworms did a lot of healing. These two both kind of go down in situations where you are having other outside healers keeping you high, because again, Will only works on damage taken below 35% health, and again, Bloodworms do 50% of your missing health. So the healing there is only of your missing health. So again, if you're only missing 5,000 health, 50% of that's a very small number. If you're missing 40,000 health, 50% is a much bigger number. So again, these are both talents that really help out more when you're lower for longer, and again, they kind of self-sustain. So again, those are definitely things to be thinking about. Tombstone, very strong. Blood Shield. So again, Blood Shield seems to do a little better, but again, it's on my own. I find that in raid situations and in dungeon situations, Blood Shield tends to do a bit more of the overhealing in a sense. And again, it's going to really depend upon mastery scaling for that value. Speaking of exactly that, let's talk about our stats as I run back to my body. So again, mastery has always been the kind of contentious point because in the past we never really cared for mastery. It does 0 DPS. Other than, of course, the attack power increase, which was the worst scaling of any of these. And from the defensive side, again, it was one of those things where putting points into this for the extra shield was kind of hit or miss. It was okay in some situations and just not good in others. In general, like I said, you tend to have healers keeping you up, and the shield amount was just not large enough to make it worthwhile. Now, with different scaling and different health pools, it is possible that this actually could be a lot better, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Versatility is always going to be very good. Not only does it do more damage and healing done, but it does also decrease damage taken, so again, that's very valuable. I also believe that Death Strike works really nice with this, because again, the damage and the healing, both in a sense, can kind of get buffed in the same vein. Haste, again, increases attack speed, rune generation. Rune regeneration is very important. So like I said, I think one of the values of Rune Strike is just that ability to generate runes on your own, right, without the need to wait for them to come back up in a sense. So yeah, that's very, very valuable, because again, Death Strike's expensive, so the more runes you can get off to build that RP, the better. Again, especially if you're taking something like Rune Tap, being able to generate runes is very valuable. So Haste not only is going to increase your DPS, but it's going to increase survivability by increasing rune generation, slightly also by reducing the cooldown on Blood Boil, so again, you kind of build up those stacks quicker. Crit does increase parry. This is going to really come down to the value of avoidance. So again, in the past, things like effective health end up becoming better than avoidance because of how they scaled and the amount of health you had. And so as far as thinking about, how long you can keep yourself alive, self-sustained, it was just better to add on more hit points, to add on more armor, to kind of add on that damage reduction, that increased stamina, than it was to worry about dodge or parry. With the smaller health pools that we have now, and the different kind of scaling of damage, that might change. It might be that having parry might maybe be able to scale better than scaling armor or scaling stamina. Again, we'll just have to kind of wait and see. If that's the case, of course, crit's value would have better value. Crit's going to be very good. However, for DPS, it should be noted that crit also can affect the crit healing that can happen to you. So again, Death Strike's healing can crit in some situations. So again, having more crit can help that again as well. Okay, so overall thoughts about Blood. I think Blood is going to be very good in terms of threat generation. It already was one of the better threat tanks in Legion, and I don't see that changing in BfA. And with the threat changes, that might make Blood, again, very, very valuable. Mythic Plus was the one area of possible weakness because of movement speed for them, and I do think that the ability to take 2 movement speed talents will definitely help here some. So again, that definitely could be something that will help them out there. More importantly, however, I think they're going to have very good damage and very good self-sustain. They have enough tools, enough buttons to hit, again, with things like Rune Tap and possibly Tombstone as well. That's a lot of extra kind of abilities that you're going to have to take care of things. Blood Drinker, you get the idea. So I definitely think that Blood has all the toolkit that it needs to be a very, very good tank. It doesn't seem like it's missing anything. It has good overall damage reduction with things like IVF and Rune Tap. Again, it has good magic damage with Anti-Magic Shell. It has very good passive damage with their Bone Shield. And the armor generation from their rune weapon as well for the Stone Gargoyle. So again, I do think that they're going to be very well rounded. Their self-healing is still very strong, and it's fun to play. It's reactive. Like, you can be a better Blood tank by understanding when to use Death Strike, by understanding when to use your abilities. It's not just a hit whatever's available kind of thing. You really have to think and plan out your attack here, and I do think that it rewards for really good play. So overall, I'm definitely very much on favor of Blood. And again, I'm interested to see what the other tanks look like when I take a look at them a little bit later. So what do you think? Do you like Blood? Do you think Blood's going to be a good tank? Do you think Blood might actually find a place in Mythic Plus this expansion? Or do you think that, again, the movement speed is going to be too much of an issue there? What do you think of the overall talents? What do you think about moving Ossuary and Foul Bulwark together? Right? What do you think about having Rune Tap now maybe possibly being an ability you take now? Let me know down in the comments. I'm very interested to start a discussion about any of these things. If you liked what I had to say, go ahead and give me a like. If you just like what I had to say, go ahead and give me a dislike. If you like content like this and you want to see more in-depth coverage of all the classes and specs on the BfA beta, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Again, I have a number of classes already done, and I will be eventually finishing up all of the rest of the classes as time goes on. Again, I'm releasing about 1 video a day, so again, you can always look forward to a new video every morning. But thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in my later videos.